The forbidden morning. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before Captain Elias Voss, the commander of the deep space exploration vessel Aurora's Edge. He stood silently on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the swirling nebula beyond the viewport. A lifetime among the stars had made him comfortable with solitude. But tonight, an eerie sense of unease clawed at his mind. A soft chime from the console broke his thoughts. "Captain, incoming transmission," his communications officer, Lieutenant Rhea Morgan, announced, her voice tight with tension. "It's an automated distress signal. Unknown origin." Elias turned sharply. "Location." Rhea's fingers danced over the controls. "A dead system. No active colonies, no known outposts. The transmission is old, very old." "How old?" Elias asked, his gut already tightening with suspicion. Rhea hesitated, her brow furrowed. "At least 10,000 years." Silence fell over the bridge. A distress signal that old meant only one thing. Something ancient had been left behind. Something that wasn't meant to be found. Elias inhaled slowly. "Put it on." The speakers crackled with static before a deep, distorted voice echoed through the ship, laced with an urgency that transcended time. "To any who hear this, heed our warning. Do not, under any circumstances, set foot on this world. The ruins are not ruins. The silence is not safety. Leave. Do not wake them. Do not wake Earth's warriors." The message ended abruptly. The only sound left was the hum of the ship's systems, a stark contrast to the weight of the words that had just been spoken. Elias exchanged glances with his second-in-command, Commander Aaron Cade. "A warning?" Aaron mused. "From a civilization that no longer exists." "Maybe it didn't listen to its own advice," Elias muttered. A flicker of unease passed through the crew. They had encountered countless remnants of lost empires before, decayed ruins, abandoned megastructures, forgotten outposts floating in the abyss. But never had they received a message this explicit, this final. Elias clenched his jaw. "Helm, set a course for the signal's origin." The crew hesitated. It was unspoken but understood. They were going against the warning. But curiosity, that stubborn hallmark of humanity, was a force that could never be tamed. The descent into the planet's atmosphere was smooth, but as soon as the ship broke through the thick clouds, the sight before them stole the breath from every crew member aboard. The surface was a graveyard. Colossal ruins stretched for miles, broken monoliths of a forgotten era. Blackened towers, shattered domes, and metallic husks of structures lay half-buried in the shifting sands of time. The air was heavy, dense with an energy that prickled against their skin, even through the ship's reinforced hull. Elias stood at the viewport, his expression unreadable. "This isn't just a ruin. It's a battlefield." Aaron nodded, studying the deep scars carved into the terrain, the wreckage of war machines long since reduced to rust and debris. Whoever fought here didn't just destroy their enemy. They erased them. Rhea swallowed hard. But who was the enemy? The question lingered unanswered as Aurora's Edge touched down on a plateau overlooking the ancient devastation. The moment the landing gear settled, a pulse echoed through the planet, a deep, resonating hum that vibrated through the ground. The ship's lights flickered. "Captain," Rhea whispered, "something just woke up." Elias felt the hairs on his arms rise. "Suit up. We're going in." The first step onto the planet felt like stepping into history itself. The landing party, consisting of Elias, Aaron, Rhea, and a small team of specialists, advanced cautiously through the ruins. Every step kicked up a fine layer of dust, revealing glimpses of forgotten symbols etched into the ground. Dr. Vasily Orlov, the team's xenolinguist, knelt beside one such marking, his brow furrowed. These symbols, they're Terran in origin, old Earth script, but no human colony was ever recorded this far out. Elias' fingers tightened on his rifle, which means this place predates human expansion into the stars. Impossible. Erin whispered. Humans weren't spacefaring 10,000 years ago. Unless, Vasily said slowly, we weren't the first. The words settled like lead in their stomachs. They pressed forward, past crumbling structures and fallen statues that bore faces eerily similar to their own. Time had eroded much, but the sheer scale of the city suggested an advanced civilization, one that had built wonders beyond comprehension, and then vanished. Ahead, a vast structure loomed, a temple-like edifice, its doors sealed tight. It pulsed with the same energy they had felt upon landing. A chill ran through Elias as he approached, the warning from the distress signal replaying in his mind. Do not wake them. Rhea stepped forward, her scanner blinking rapidly. Captain, I'm picking up life signs. Elias' heart pounded. Impossible. This world is dead. No, something, or someone, is still here. The moment she spoke, the doors of the temple groaned. Dust rained from above as ancient mechanisms, untouched for millennia, creaked into motion. The entrance slowly yawned open, revealing an abyss of unnatural darkness. A single deep breath later, Elias turned to his team. We're going in. The team exchanged uncertain glances, but no one spoke against it. The mission had already gone beyond the realm of the expected. This was no ordinary ruin. This was a secret buried beneath the cosmos, one that time itself had sought to erase. As they crossed the threshold into the unknown, a gust of air escaped the temple, a sigh, as if the planet itself had been holding its breath for an eternity. And now, it had exhaled. The awakening tomb. Darkness swallowed them whole as they stepped beyond the massive stone doors. The air inside the temple was heavy, thick with an ancient presence that sent an involuntary shiver down every spine. Their suit lights flickered, struggling against the suffocating blackness that clung to the towering walls. Captain Elias Voss led the way, his boots echoing against the stone floor. The inside of the structure was vast, larger than any ruin they had ever encountered. Vaulted ceilings loomed overhead, barely visible, while massive pillars, carved with intricate designs, stood like silent sentinels of a forgotten era. This place isn't just old, whispered Lieutenant Rhea Morgan, scanning the glyph-covered walls with her visor. It predates anything we've seen before. This isn't just a ruin, it's a tomb. Elias exchanged a glance with Commander Erin Cade, who nodded grimly. The eerie stillness of the chamber told them everything they needed to know. Something had been buried here, something meant to stay undisturbed. Dr. Vasily Orlov, the team's xenolinguist, knelt beside one of the monolithic slabs covered in inscriptions. His gloved fingers traced the carvings, his breath catching in his throat. This writing, he muttered. It's a mixture of early Terran and something else. Something older. Elias narrowed his eyes. Older than Terran. Vasily nodded. It's almost like they tried to merge languages, like a warning written for anyone who could understand. Elias exhaled slowly. What does it say? Vasily adjusted his scanner, the device struggling to decipher the strange hybrid text. A long silence stretched before he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Here lie Earth's warriors, sealed away for eternity. Do not wake them. Do not rouse what sleeps in this tomb. The stars remember their wrath. A cold silence settled over the team. Rhea's fingers tightened around her rifle. Sealed away, she repeated, her voice tinged with unease. That doesn't sound like a memorial. It sounds like a prison. Erin took a step forward, sweeping his light across the chamber. A prison for what? No one had an answer. The air grew heavier the deeper they moved into the temple, the silence oppressive, unnatural. Dust swirled beneath their boots, undisturbed for thousands of years, until now. Their presence was an intrusion, a violation of something sacred. At the center of the chamber stood a colossal door of unknown metal, its surface smooth and unmarked, save for a single emblem, an ancient sigil of earth. It had been carved with precision, untouched by time, its edges still sharp as if forged yesterday. Rhea hesitated, then reached out, running her gloved fingers across the symbol. A sudden vibration pulsed beneath her touch, faint but unmistakable. She yanked her hand back. "The structure just responded to me," she said, voice laced with alarm. "This isn't just a tomb. It's still active." Elias tensed. "Stand back." Before they could react, the air around them trembled. A deep hum reverberated through the walls, shaking dust loose from the high ceiling. The monolithic door groaned as unseen mechanisms, silent for millennia, rumbled to life. Then, with a slow, grinding movement, the doors began to slide open. A blinding blue light spilled from within, forcing them to shield their eyes. The hum deepened into an almost living pulse, resonating through their bones. Then came the sound, a deep, shuddering exhale. Not from the walls, not from the temple. From inside, Aaron grabbed Elias' arm. "Captain, we should leave, now." But it was too late. The chamber beyond the doors was unlike anything they had ever seen. Massive stasis pods lined the walls, arranged in perfect symmetry, each one filled with a glowing liquid. Within them lay figures, silent, unmoving, encased in a deep, dreamless sleep. They weren't alien. They were human. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each one clad in a sleek, dark exosuit, their bodies preserved in eerie perfection. Their faces, frozen in time, bore no signs of age or decay. These weren't ordinary soldiers. These were warriors. Elias' breath caught in his throat. "My God, they've been here for thousands of years." Vasily, barely able to speak, stepped forward. "Captain, if this is real, then everything we know about human history is wrong." Rhea's scanner beeped wildly. "These pods, they're designed to keep them alive." "Barely. But some are damaged." Elias turned sharply. "Damaged? What do you mean?" Before she could answer, one of the pods let out a sharp hiss. A crack formed across its surface. The hum of the facility deepened, becoming a slow, rhythmic thrum. Lights flickered, ancient systems booting up for the first time in millennia. More hissing followed. More cracks. One by one, the pods began to release their occupants. The first warrior's eyes shot open. They weren't human. Not entirely. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, veins pulsing beneath his skin like liquid metal. His breath was slow, controlled, as he stepped from the pod. He towered over them, his body more machine than flesh, his armor fusing seamlessly with his form. Then he turned his gaze toward the team. Elias barely had time to react before another pod opened, and another, and another. The chamber filled with movement as warriors emerged, their faces devoid of emotion. Their presence sent an instinctual, primal fear through the crew. These were not men. These were weapons. Then the first warrior spoke. "Who has woken us?" His voice was deep, metallic, reverberating through the chamber like an echo of something ancient. His gaze locked onto Elias, unblinking, unreadable. Elias took a cautious step forward, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We are explorers. We found your distress signal." The warrior's head tilted slightly. Distress signal. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Then he exhaled, a slow, calculated breath. "You do not understand." The other warriors were waking now, their suits humming with dormant energy. The walls of the chamber pulsed, ancient scripts illuminating with a warning that Vasily barely had time to translate. "They are awake. The stars will tremble once more." The warrior before them clenched his fists. His body shifted, muscles rippling beneath his biomechanical suit. "You have made a grave mistake," he said, his voice void of anger, yet filled with certainty. Elias' pulse pounded in his ears. "Why?" The warrior's eyes gleamed, and his answer came like the toll of a death knell. "Because now, we will finish what we started." And then the alarms screamed to life. The tomb had awoken. And with it, the war that had once destroyed civilizations was about to begin again. The Forgotten War. The shrieking alarm was deafening, echoing through the ancient chamber like the wail of a ghost long forgotten. Red emergency lights flickered to life, illuminating the rows of stasis pods that lined the walls, each one now releasing its occupant. The warriors of Earth, sealed away for eternity, were awakening. Elias Voss felt his heartbeat hammer against his ribs as he locked eyes with the first warrior who had spoken. The towering figure took a slow step forward, his exosuit humming with ancient power, the very air around him distorting with energy. His glowing eyes bore into Elias with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. "Explain yourselves," the warrior demanded, his voice laced with authority, calm, yet unyielding. He was not afraid. He did not flinch at the presence of the armed team before him. Elias fought to keep his voice steady. "We are explorers. We received a distress signal from this planet, a message warning us not to come." He exhaled, trying to process what was unfolding. "But we came anyway." The warrior's jaw clenched, his gaze shifting to the rest of the landing team. "Then you are fools." A second warrior stepped from his pod, his movements fluid and controlled, as if he had never been asleep at all. His features were sharp, his armor bearing deep engravings of ancient battles. He glanced at his companion before speaking. "How long has it been?" Dr. Vasily Orlov cleared his throat, still staring in disbelief at the awakening warriors. He clutched his scanner tightly. "Based on the age of this structure, at least 10,000 years. The warriors did not react in shock. No gasps, no disbelief. Only silence. The first warrior turned his gaze back to Elias. "Then the war is over." Elias hesitated. "What war?" The warrior studied him for a long moment before speaking. "The war against the Apex." Silence fell over the chamber. Elias exchanged glances with Erin, Vasily, and Rhea. None of them had ever heard that name before. "Apex?" Erin repeated cautiously. "Whoa, or what? Are they?" The second warrior's expression hardened. "You do not know." "No," Elias admitted. "There is no record of them. No mention in any historical database." The first warrior exhaled slowly. "Then we succeeded." Elias took a step forward. "Succeeded in what?" The warrior's gaze burned into him. "In erasing them." A cold wave of unease washed over the team. Vasily cleared his throat again, his scientific curiosity outweighing his fear. "You said you were at war. But humanity wasn't spacefaring 10,000 years ago. Our records show we were barely climbing out of pre-industrial civilization." The second warrior scoffed. "Then your records are wrong." The first warrior raised a hand, silencing his companion. His gaze remained locked onto Elias. "You believe you are the first humans to reach the stars." Elias hesitated. "Yes, humanity's recorded space expansion began only a few centuries ago." The warrior's face remained unreadable, but there was something in his expression, a flicker of something that resembled sorrow. He glanced at the glowing runes along the chamber walls, his fingers grazing them as if remembering something long buried. "We were the first," he murmured. The weight of his words settled over them like a crushing force. Rhea's voice was barely above a whisper. "You mean humanity had a spacefaring civilization before?" "Before all recorded history." The warrior nodded. "We ruled the stars once, and we nearly lost everything." The chamber felt impossibly small now, the gravity of the revelation suffocating. Vasily's hands trembled as he furiously typed into his scanner, trying to process what he was hearing. Elias steadied himself. "Tell us, what happened?" The warrior's eyes darkened. "We fought the Apex." He turned away from Elias, his gaze fixed on the far end of the chamber. "The Apex were not like anything you know. Not like the empires you've encountered. They were not conquerors, not invaders. They were exterminators." Erin frowned. "Exterminators." "They did not seek to rule," the warrior continued. "They sought to erase. They did not enslave. They did not negotiate. They arrived, and they purged. A terrible stillness settled over the room. "We fought them for centuries," the warrior said. "At first, we thought we could resist, that we were stronger, more adaptable, but they were relentless. Each world they touched was turned to cinder. Entire planets wiped from existence. We did everything we could to stop them." His voice dropped lower, almost bitter. But in the end, it was not enough. A chill ran down Elias' spine. He could see it now. The scorched worlds, the dead civilizations, the desperation of a species pushed to the brink. Aaron swallowed hard. Then, how did it end? The second warrior answered this time. "We made a choice." The first warrior turned back toward them, his expression unreadable. "We knew that fighting them conventionally was suicide. So we did something unthinkable." Rhea took a slow step back. "What did you do?" The warrior's eyes glowed brighter. "We sacrificed our future." He motioned to the rows upon rows of stasis pods. "The best of us, the strongest, the ones willing to pay the price. We turned ourselves into weapons." Elias' breath hitched. "You turned yourselves into weapons." "We abandoned what made us human," the warrior admitted. "Our bodies, our minds, our limits. We became something else, something designed to end the apex at any cost." Vasily's voice was hoarse. "And did it work?" The warrior's gaze darkened. "Yes." A deep, suffocating silence followed. The weight of his answer was undeniable. "But at a cost we could never undo," he added. Elias swallowed hard. "And after the war, what happened?" The warrior exhaled. "We could not go back. We were not human anymore. We were something else, something dangerous. We had become what we fought." A terrible realization settled in Elias' mind. "That's why you were sealed away." The warrior nodded. "To ensure that we would never awaken again." Rhea's voice was barely above a whisper. "And now we've broken that seal." The warrior's gaze locked onto Elias. "Yes." Suddenly, the alarms shifted in tone. A new sound, not a warning, a signal, from outside. Elias' communicator crackled to life. The panicked voice of the pilot still aboard Aurora's Edge came through, filled with raw terror. "Captain, we got incoming ships, unknown signatures. They just appeared out of nowhere. They... Oh God." THEYRE firing. A distant explosion rumbled from above. The ground beneath them trembled. The warrior's eyes darkened. "They found us." Elias turned sharply. "Who found us?" The warrior clenched his fists. "The apex."